Welcome to Virtual Summer Seminar in the math portion. My name is Miss Amy Amsbaugh. I currently teach 5th grade, and I teach all subjects right now. And so as we are getting into this session, we're going to talk about how to make math count, how to have an effective arithmetic class. So when we think of math, I don't know about you, but when I first started teaching, math was one of those subjects that was intimidating to me. The reason it was intimidating to me is I grew up in using different curriculums, and so looking at all of the curriculum and the book and the things I would be explaining and teaching, I just didn't know if I could do it, to be honest. But as I got into it, I found that it lays everything out beautifully, step by step, and I feel confident that at the end of my math lesson, I was effective and I knew exactly what to do. And as I've been teaching more years, you get a few things underneath your belt and you get more comfortable teaching arithmetic. So if you are a first-year teacher, brand new to teaching arithmetic, I hope this session, my goal is to make you feel calm, that you feel excited to teach math, and feel that you know what you're going to do. And if you're a veteran teacher, my goal is to maybe give you some tips that you haven't used before, things I maybe have gleaned from others that you can glean from today, and then just use those in your math class and make them more effective. So thinking about arithmetic, this session is geared for the 3rd through 6th grade. So let's just discuss for a moment what each of these curriculums you're going to mostly cover. 3rd grade teachers, you have an important job. In 3rd grade, they focus on multiplication and division and really just getting those math facts down. In the summer, I've had the opportunity to teach summer school, which is our remedial group of children, and I do teach 3rd grade math, and I love the 3rd grade math books. But one thing I have noticed that 3rd graders typically really struggle with, if they're low, are just those math facts. And so they've learned multiplication a little bit in 2nd grade, but you're really focusing on those big multiplication problems in 3rd grade. You're also getting into division. You'll eventually get into fractions just a little bit at the end. And your explanation is so important, 3rd grade teachers, because that's what us 4th grade or 5th grade teachers use to build on. So in 3rd grade, your main focus is multiplication and division and really nailing down those facts. And then in 4th grade, we get into fractions. 4th grade is all about fractions. Now, there are lots of multiplication problems in those bigger ones with, the 3 numbers that they're multiplying. And then the big division problems as well. In 4th grade, there is a point when they have those big division problems with the big divisors, and you will have some students feel overwhelmed, but don't fear, just keep helping them individually, walking around and helping those students, and they'll get it in no time. And then really explaining those fractions for them, because the fractions are the foundation for what they're going to be doing in 5th grade and 6th grade and on even into the upper grades. And so 4th grade teachers, we appreciate your help with fractions, and just keep working with them and those reducing and adding and multiplying, all the things with the fractions. And then in 5th grade, that's the grade I'm currently teaching, we take those fractions at the beginning of the year and we go over all the things that they've learned. And again, we're trying to teach it like it's the first time, because we do have students join us from different schools, different curriculums, so they may not know those facts. And so we teach fractions again. And then in 5th grade, we really put the emphasis on decimals. I like teaching decimals. It's very exact. I like it so much. And so we teach them that a fraction and a decimal are essentially the same thing. They're just written differently. And we start working on how to change them over. We also have the big division problems. We divide with decimals, and we're really setting them up for 6th grade. And then 6th grade teachers, for the elementary level, you have the hardest job of all. In 6th grade, they take the fractions and then the decimals, and they change them to percents. And there is a percent chart that you're going to use so much, where they just memorize those facts, that 1/2 equals 0.5 equals 50%, and just going over those percents with them. And it is hard, but the more you teach it, and hopefully today will give you some tips, that the more successful your students can be. One thing I notice with our curriculum is it's constantly reviewing. On your worksheets, you'll see lots of problems again and again that cover the same concepts that they've already learned. I'm so thankful for that, because if they don't get it the first time, it's okay. They're going to have it again and again and again. So now that we've kind of set up what we're teaching, let's get into how we teach it. Now, everything I tell you today, I'm going to tell you as a teacher, this is what I do. And you'll notice our curriculum is so specific. I love it. And you might feel that you can't do all of it, and that's okay. But I will just tell you what I do, and it might be a help to you and you can implement it in your classroom. But just know it's just from one teacher to another. So maybe you can take some of these things. So at the beginning of arithmetic, you'll notice in your curriculum, the curriculum tells you exactly what to do. It will have a time for your oral review, for your homework check, for some warm-up exercises, and that all typically is in the first 15 or so minutes of your math class. Now, I think about when I am teaching math, one of my main things I have to do is prepare. If I'm going to go home and cook dinner, I have to first make sure I have all the ingredients, I have everything I needed from the store in order to be successful making dinner. Well, the same thing is true with arithmetic. You have to kind of prepare a little bit, set everything out, and when you do that, it's so much easier because you have everything there and ready to go. So when we start that oral review, the warm-ups, the first thing I tend to do, and you might already do this, is I check homework. Now, in arithmetic, homework is not every single night, but it is typically about 2 to 3 days a week. So let me tell you a few ways that I check homework. The first thing I do is I have all my rows of students hold up that they had it. And then I never want to give the impression that homework is not important. So I always go over the answers. Now, sometimes I step it up a little bit. Sometimes we exchange and grade it. And when we do that, I don't actually take the homework for a grade, but it helps me gauge how they're doing and if they're doing their homework correctly. So when I do that, I don't always, but sometimes we just exchange and grade, and then I'll say, stand if you made a 100 on your homework. And if they did, I might give them a Skittle or a piece of candy or something like that, or I might just say, great job, and pass it forward. If I exchange and grade it and I know that a lot of students did poorly, what I also sometimes do is I have a stamp that I got and it says, please sign and return. And so I stamp that on the homework and have them take it home and have their parents sign it. And that's very helpful because if they're doing so poorly on their homework every single night, you can't expect them to do well on their test. And so because of that, I will send it home to the parent. And that also communicates to the parent that I'm thoroughly checking their homework. And it's not just busy work, I'm making sure that they did it right. So I will check the homework that way. And then sometimes I like to check it that way because if you have a student that's regularly missing math homework, there might be 2 reasons. First, they might just be being lazy and not doing their best, in which case I need to get on them. The other reason is they may truly not understand it. And so if I'm thoroughly checking the homework, it helps me to know how I can help my lower students better. So after that, I just pass up the homework and we're done. So hopefully that helps you with checking homework. And then I just file it away in my classroom. After homework check, it's time to do that oral review portion. Now, depending on your grade, it might have a different order of oral review, and that's okay. I'm going to tell you what I do, what helps me, but if you're a 3rd grade teacher and this doesn't work for you, that's okay. I'm just going to tell you what I do. So the way my brain works is I don't like to look at the curriculum and take a lot of time in between what I'm doing because I feel like that just feels awkward in the classroom. So I set up my room the same way every time. The first thing I do is I put all my board work up on my chalkboard the night before, and I put all of my charts that are called for that day on the board as well. My boards are magnetic, so I just use magnets. If you don't have magnetic boards, I've seen a lot of teachers take skirt hangers and clip their charts and just hang it on the bottom, and that works out really well. And then I put up all my board work, my charts, and then I have kind of like a paper divider that you would use for a desk, and I put all my flashcards in that. And I put them together in the order that they're called for. And one thing you'll notice is there are certain flashcard sets that always go together. For example, in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, 15 through 53 is always together. So I just keep them that way the whole year. It makes it very easy to grab them out. So I start off, after I've checked homework, if there was any. If there's column addition that day, I do my column addition first. In just a moment, we're going to watch a clip of somebody doing column addition in 3rd grade. Now, by the time they get to 5th and 6th grade, they're very fast with it. And so because of that, sometimes I'll have a student come up and lead it. They really like that. But we'll do the column addition first. And then because it's on the board, I look over, and if there's any charts that I need to cover, like the 1 to 100 chart or divisibility rules, I'll do them at that point because they're right in front of me. I'm at the chalkboard. If there was also any board work that was called for my oral part, I'll do that then. So basically, I just cover the entire chalkboard at that point. After that, I go over to my paper divider that I have out on a credenza, and I just go through all the flashcards that are there. The curriculum is not inspired, so it doesn't have to be the exact order that it was called for, but I do want to cover everything. And then at that point, I've done everything on the board, my charts, I've done all my flashcards, and then I just put my curriculum for the day on a clipboard. I look down at it and I see, are there any oral story problems or anything I missed? And then I begin the speed drill. And I do that every single day. So it's column addition, my charts, any board work that's oral review part, and then my flashcards, double check my curriculum, and I'm ready to start my speed drill. So that is how I do it. Now, you might be a 3rd grade teacher, and you might just be starting column addition, and so that might not work best for you, but it's just what I do that kind of helps it get in my head, and it's all together. Now, right now, I would like to jump into a 3rd grade class. This is Miss Heindel, and she is a 3rd grade teacher, and she's doing a few things I want you to notice. She is doing some oral combinations with the students. I want you to notice her pace. I actually felt a little convicted watching her. She goes really fast, and those 3rd graders, they get it. And so check her pace for that. She also is doing a column addition, and this is the very beginning of the school year. So I want you to check how she's doing it, and then I'm actually going to show you how I do it differently. But check that and just watch her pace, watch how her classroom is set up, and then we'll discuss it when we come back.
40 divided by 4, Anna. 10 is right. 36 divided by 4, Emily. Adriana?
9.
9. What was it, Emily? Good. 20 divided by 4. Jacob?
5.
Yes. Here's the long one. 8 plus 8 divided by 4 equals girls. Emily? Tyra?
4.
4 is right. 20 minus 12 divided by 4 equals boys. Tyra? Or excuse me, Asa?
20.
Caden?
2.
2 is the correct answer. Well done. At this time, prepare for your speed drill. We're going to add this addition problem together. Jackson, go ahead and turn on the lights for us. 5 plus 8 equals?
13.
13 plus 6 equals?
19.
19 plus 2 equals?
21.
21. So I will write the 1 and carry the 2 to the next column. It's very important when you're doing addition problems with multiple columns or more than one that you keep the numbers you carry in a neat column so that you can neatly carry and accurately carry. 2 plus 3 equals?
5.
Plus 6 equals?
11.
Plus 9 equals?
19.
29 is the correct answer. Now let's continue by carrying 2 to the next column. 2 plus 4 is?
6.
Plus 7?
13.
Plus 3?
16.
Plus 8?
24.
24 is correct, so I'm going to carry the 2 to the top of the next column. 2 plus 9 is?
11.
Plus 3?
14.
14 plus 7?
21.
21 plus 4?
25.
25 is the correct answer. So I'll carry the 2 to the top of the next column. 2 plus 6 is?
8.
Plus 9 is?
17.
17 plus 8 is?
25.
25 plus 6 is?
31.
31. Where does the comma go? Emily?
In between the 5 and 4.
Yes, and read the answer, Carson.
31.
Start with the 3.
315,491.
That is correct. Now let's take a look at these problems here with estimation. 470, what hundred does that round to, Emily?
500.
Yes. Now let's take a look at 210. What hundred does that round to, Asa?
200.
Yes. Now, am I going to add or subtract, Jackson?
Subtract.
Because our sign here tells us to subtract. Always check those signs, whether you're adding or subtracting. Now we're just going to take a look at 500 minus the 200. What is 500 minus 200, Lexi?
300.
300. So 300 is that final answer. That is the estimated answer. Step 1 is to always round.
So did you notice a few things? Did you notice her pace with her oral combinations? I was impressed, and they got it. Every time she called on a student, somebody knew the answer. So challenging them. And then her column addition, did you notice it was a little slow, and she did put carrying numbers up, but it's the very beginning of 3rd grade. So that's when it's just starting. One thing that I noticed several 3rd grade teachers do that I really like, I don't do it in 5th grade, but I think it's very helpful for 3rd, maybe even 4th grade, is sometimes teachers will do different columns, different colors to help distinguish the columns for their students. So they might do the ones column all pink chalk, the tens column all blue chalk. I've seen some teachers do it different colors going across for the numbers, but it helps the students to just notice the difference. So I want you to look at the screen and notice the column addition, and I'm going to show you how I do it. So do you see this big number here? Instead of saying 8 plus 4 and then waiting for the students and then saying 4 plus 2 and then 2 plus 6, I don't do that. We just add it as we go. So let me give you an example. If that was my column addition in my class, I would say 8, 12, 14, 20, 27. So we would say that together as a class. And I would write the 7, and in 5th grade, I do not carry the 2. So then we would start the next column by just saying 2, 2, 8, 17, 22, 31. And I would write the 1, and we would not carry the 3. So it's a little bit different in the upper grades, but that's challenging their thinking. So just a thought for you. I try to go quickly, and there's always one smart student. So if you feel overwhelmed with a column addition, don't skip it. Just get used to it, and after a while, it clicks in your head. So that's our warm-up portion, our homework check, and then we get into the speed drill. So an easy way to do speed drills is I have a kitchen timer. I bought it my first year teaching, and I have had it ever since, haven't even had to change the batteries on it. So it's going strong, 9 years. But if you get a timer and you put it on your chalkboard, it's just right there, and I set it the night before. You could obviously use your phone or something like that as well. And then I have all of my speed drills in a back corner of my classroom, crisscrossed and ready to go for my students. So the back student passes them out. I actually like to pass them out before math class, right when we're getting started, and they put them under their desk. And that just saves time. Do you notice when you pass things forward and back, it just takes so long. So we pass them out, and then they're ready underneath their desk. And we start the speed drill by just pulling them out. I tell them what lesson we're on, and then they begin. I set the timer, and when we're done, we check it. If it was not graded, we just read off the answers. I might have them give me the answers. If it is graded, we exchange it, we grade it, and then I only pass it forward if it was graded. We don't want the students to be tempted to cheat or change their answers. So if it's graded, we pass it forward because of that. But if not, we just put it back under our desk, and when math is completely done, that's when we pass it back. So that's how I do my speed drill. And then it's time to teach the new concept. So when you think of teaching a new concept, I think about visual learners. Are you a visual learner? I am. If you send me a long email with instructions, that does me no good. If I watch a video, I know exactly what to do. Maybe you're like me. And so with our students, if you just talk them through a new concept, they're not going to get it. And they're tired. It might be first thing in the morning. So we want to make sure that we're thoroughly explaining it and showing them how to do the problem. So when I teach a new concept, my goal is to have some kind of introduction. That's normally for me a story. So I'll tell them some story. I think of when I teach them how to add decimals, we want to keep the decimals lined up. So I always tell them the story about my sister, and the steering wheel was not lined up in the driveway, and she ran our car into a tree in the front of our driveway and totaled it in our driveway. And I say, if you don't have everything lined up, you will wreck your problem, just like my sister wrecked our car. And that's my introduction. So I was trying to think of some type of introduction to just get their attention and get them all with me. And then I show them how to solve the problem. And then you want to make sure you do definitive steps. Steps are so easy for students to follow. I'm thinking of the larger to smaller multiply, smaller to larger divide. When you do those, we always write 1, 2, 3, and then we say, okay, am I going from larger to smaller or smaller to larger? We're going to write that by number 1. Okay, what's my special number? 1 foot equals 12 inches. Okay, now I'm going to multiply, or now I'm going to divide. And just those definitive steps makes it so easy for them to get. So when I'm thinking of explaining a new problem, I try to think in my head how to break it down into steps. So that way the students can easily catch on to what I'm doing. I also don't expect them all to get it the first time. Now that sounds kind of bad to say, but in reality, are they all going to get it the first time? Probably not. Now my goal is to teach it so well that they all get it the first time and they're all smiling and happy and so glad to be in math class, but that's not real life. And so because of that, you want to make sure you go slow, and if they don't get it, don't get frustrated. It will come back again and again and again, and you'll re-explain it tomorrow. But just explaining it slowly in an interesting way so that the average student can easily get it. Your smart students will probably have gotten it halfway through your explanation, and your low students may not get it until tomorrow. But my goal is to teach it in such a way that all my average kids could easily get it that first day. So I explain it in a very thorough way, and then you don't want to use any kind of shortcuts that would harm them later. Sometimes students will try to use shortcuts because it works one time and it won't work again. A few years ago, I had a boy in my class who will forever be ingrained in my brain. His name was Jojo, and Jojo was forevermore getting his fractions wrong. And so one day I brought him up to my desk and I said, okay, Jojo, show me how you are solving these problems. So he said, well, I just multiply this times this times this. I said, but why are you doing that? And he goes, it worked once. I said, oh, Jojo, this is the problem. So just because something works for them one time, it won't always work. So don't allow them to use shortcuts that would harm them later. Just because it works once doesn't mean it will effectively work every time. So we want to keep an eye out for that. And then you want to make sure that you do 2 problems for them yourself. So if I think about converting Fahrenheit to Celsius or Celsius to Fahrenheit, I personally am going to do 2 whole problems on my chalkboard for the students. You might use PowerPoint, and that's totally fine, but you want to completely do 2 for them. And then after that, they can start helping you, but they need to see you do it a few times to make sure they understand it. And so you'll want to set up 2 problems and have those ready to go. And then I always typically put a 3rd problem up that's from their book, and we'll do that first one together. So I'm still explaining it, but they're doing it in their book, so that way we're kind of all doing it together and they can understand it easily. And then again, work those problems on the worksheets with them. At this time, I'm going to show you a clip from my classroom. Now, this clip was taken during the time of COVID, so there's a couple things, disclaimers. The students' desks are a little in odd shapes, just ignore that. And then also, one thing I don't actually do in real life is you'll notice I just stand at the front the entire time, and that is just because of 6 feet at that time. So just notice that that is not normal behavior, but I want you to check for how many times I explain the new concept. Did I make it interesting? Maybe say I didn't. That's okay. And then notice, did all the students get it the first time? And I will tell you, we have some wrong answers. It's a real life situation. So just notice how kind of a new concept is introduced, and then we'll talk about that when we come back. All right, so we've been learning about how to change from Celsius temperatures to Fahrenheit temperatures. And this is very important because if we were to go to another country, why would we need to know this? And can somebody tell me, Carson?
Because if you go to a place like Canada, it'll be using Celsius.
Right, and so we want to be able to know what the temperature is. Let's practice by singing our song first. Ready? Here we go. 9 fifths times C.
9 fifths times C.
Plus 32.
Plus 32.
Equals the Fahrenheit.
Equals the Fahrenheit.
Temperature.
Temperature.
9 fifths times C plus 32 equals the Fahrenheit temperature. So the first step that we do is we write our formula down. So we write F equals our formula 9 fifths times C plus 32. Who can raise your hand since we've already learned this and tell me what's the next thing that I do? Paul?
You take 55, or replace the C with 55,
That's right. Good job, Paul. So I write 9/5 times 55. I'm going to put this over 1 plus 32. Okay? There's two things that are important. We have multiplication and we have addition. Abby, which one is more important?
Multiplication.
Multiplication. So we're going to multiply first. So I'm going to cancel. I'm going to cross out the 5 and the 55. 5 goes into 5 one time. 5 goes into 55 11 times. We multiply. 9 times 11, everybody, is 99. So I have 99 plus 32. And then to finish off, I just add it together. So 9 plus 2 is?
11.
Here we go. 1. 9 plus 3 is?
12.
Plus 1?
13.
So our Fahrenheit temperature would be 131 degrees. So we know how to do that. So today we are going to switch. We're going to take Fahrenheit temperature and change it to Celsius. This is also important. Why can somebody tell me why would this be important? Amir, what do you think?
Because people from a different country can come to America.
Okay, so they're going to need to be able to switch it as well, so we can switch back and forth. Now, before I show you what to do, can somebody tell me what is the difference you see between this formula and this formula? You have a lot of the same numbers. Caitlin, what do you see?
The fraction 9/5 is now 5/9.
Yes. Does anybody know a fancy word for that? Carson?
Flipped.
Fancier than flipped? Amir?
Inverted.
Oh, good job, Amir. Inverted. Okay, so first step I'm going to do is I'm going to write my formula, same as last time. So I write my new formula, which is C equals 5/9 times parentheses F minus 32. We can all do that part, write the formula. Then the second step that we do is we take whatever the temperature is and we replace it where the F is. So we write C equals 5/9 times parentheses, my temperature is 68, so I write it right here, 68 minus 32. Okay, now with this one, multiplication was more important. We think of our order of operations. With this formula that we have, even though multiplication is important, if you know what order of operations are, it's parentheses first. Parentheses, exponents, then multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So I'm going to do whatever's in my parentheses first. So I'm going to write C equals, I write my formula, 5/9 times, and then I subtract 68 minus 32. Everybody, what is 8 minus 2?
6.
What is 6 minus 3?
3.
Very good. So right now I have 36, and I finish off by multiplying times 5/9. Do you see anything that will cancel, Jake?
The 9 and 36.
I agree. What does the 9 change to?
1,
And the 36?
4.
Good. And then we multiply 5 times 4. Everyone, what's 5 times 4?
20.
Okay, so our Celsius temperature is 20 degrees. Now, one thing that I always found hard as a child is to remember which formula you use for what thing. We already have learned a song for this one, so I'm going to teach you a song for our Celsius formula as well. So it goes like this. Are you ready? Subtract 32 from Fahrenheit. Multiply that answer by 5/9. That gives you Celsius. Just remember the rule is parentheses first, then multiply. All right, try to sing with me. I know it's brand new, but I think you can do it. Are you ready? Here we go. Subtract 32 from Fahrenheit. Multiply that answer by 5/9. That gives you Celsius. Just remember the rule is parentheses first, then multiply. Wow, you guys picked up on that really fast. Let's do it one more time. Let's stand as we do it really quickly. Ready? Subtract 32 from Fahrenheit. Multiply that answer by 5/9. That gives you Celsius. Just remember the rule is parentheses first and multiply. Awesome. Have a seat. Okay, so let's look at this formula right here. We have 32. Now this one we should already know because we know what 32 degrees Fahrenheit is. But let's go ahead and use the formula. So step 1, I write the formula. So I write C equals 5/9 times parentheses F minus 32. First step, write the formula. Second step, replace whatever the temperature is where the F is. So I write C equals 5/9 times 32 minus 32. Rosario, this is very difficult. Well, what is 32 minus 32? 0. You are so smart. Okay, so we have C equals 5/9 times 0, and Rosaria, anything times 0 is 0. So our Celsius temperature is 0 degrees. Now, I didn't actually have to use this formula for this one. Who can tell me why I could just do this one in my head box?
Because the Fahrenheit of the freezing point of water is 32 and Celsius is 0.
But we see this proves this works every single time. You just have to remember to do your parentheses first and then you multiply with this formula. Go ahead and take out your math worksheet lesson 119 for today. And let's do some problems together. The very first one, letter A. Jaden, can you read that problem for me, please?
On a very hot day, the temperature reached 104 degrees Fahrenheit. How many degrees Celsius?
Okay, step 1, I have it right up here. We are going to write our formula. So think of our song we just learned. Who can tell me what the brand new formula is? Ashton Logan.
C equals 5 ninths times parentheses F minus 32.
Very good. Awesome. Okay, write that down on your paper. Now, after we write the formula down, what temperature am I going to put where the Fahrenheit is, according to this story problem? Corbin?
104.
That's right. Good. So write C equals 5 ninths times 104 minus 32. What is more important in this problem, Abby? Is that parentheses or multiplying?
Multiplying, subtracting.
Yes, the parentheses with the subtraction. So we're going to subtract. So first thing we need to do is, I go ahead and write my 5 ninths. What is 4 minus 2, everyone?
2.
What is 10 minus 3?
7.
Okay, so 72 over 1. Fox, do you see anything that will cancel?
The 9 is 72.
Yes. What does the 9 change to?
1,
What does the 72 change to?
8.
Yes. Now we multiply. And Jake, what is my final answer going to be?
40.
Yes, 40 degrees Celsius. Okay, I would like you to go down to section 2. So go right underneath that story problem, section 2. It says convert 176 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius. Let's see here. Nicholas, what is the formula we just learned today that we're going to use?
C equals 5 ninths times parentheses F minus 10.
Perfect. Write it down. Okay, Ava, after we write the formula down, what am I going to put where the F is?
176.
Very good. So I'm going to write C equals 5 ninths times 176 minus 32. Jaden, what is 176 minus 32? I'm giving you the hard part.
144.
You got it. Good job. 144. So now we have 5 ninths times 144 over 1. Now, this is a little bit different, but I wouldn't think 144 could be divided by 9. But if you think of our divisibility rules, 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So it can be divided by 9. So cross out the 9, cross out the 144. 9 goes into 9 one time. And Tanner, how many times can 9 go into 144? You can do it. How many times can 9 go into 14? Okay, and then 14 minus 9?
Is 5.
Okay, and then that would leave 54. How many times can 9 go into 54?
6.
So we have 16. So then we multiply 5 times 16, and who can tell me the final answer, Carson?
85.
Close.
80.
80 degrees. Okay, let's go over these formulas one more time because it's important that we know them. So we're going to start with our old formula and then we'll sing our new formula. Girls, you start off with me. Boys, you echo. Ready, girls? 9 fifths times C.
9 fifths times C.
Plus 32.
Plus 32.
Equals the Fahrenheit.
Equals the Fahrenheit.
Temperature.
9 fifths times C. Plus 32. Equals the Fahrenheit temperature.
since we've just learned it, and then you'll sing it with me the second time. So just listen. Subtract 32 from Fahrenheit. Multiply that answer by 5/9. That gives you Celsius. Just remember the rule is parentheses first, then multiply. Think you can remember how it goes? Okay, here we go. Ready?
Subtract 32 from Fahrenheit. Multiply that answer by 5/9. That gives you Celsius. Just remember the rule is parentheses first and multiply.
All right, let's look at our worksheet one more time, and I want you to do section 2, letter B. See if you can do it all by yourself. Section 2, letter B. Okay, so a few things. Did you notice how I worked a lot on the chalkboard? I noticed at the end the chalkboard just seemed extremely full of lots of work, which I like that. I like when it looks kind of like Albert Einstein was in the room. So I do a lot on the chalkboard. One thing I personally noticed is a few years ago I broke my arm and I had to teach math in PowerPoint, and my math grades went down. And the next year I could use my arm and I wrote and the math grades went up. And I believe the reason is when I personally am writing, it helps me explain it more thoroughly, where if I'm clicking, I kind of gloss over things that maybe I shouldn't. That's something I noticed about myself. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you do better in PowerPoint. Whatever works for you. But I did 2 problems with them. Did you notice how I had songs for those formulas? Disclaimer, I am the dummy and I struggle with remembering things, and so I make up little songs for myself and then I just teach them to the students and it helps them too. And so I use those songs all the time, and even in my head when I'm thinking of converting, I have to kind of sing the song to get it, but it does help them. And then did you notice how we did some together? They were working on their papers, I was doing it on the chalkboard. And that's important because you have some lower students where they may have seen you do it, but now that they need to work on their paper, they need to kind of work and watch you do it at the same time. So you want to do those together and then let them loose on their worksheet. So after I have explained the new concept, depending on the concept, it might have taken me 20 minutes, it might have taken me 10. Then it's time to really get into the worksheet. So 3rd and 4th grade teachers, your worksheets are set up slightly different than 5th and 6th grade. In 3rd and 4th grade, you have lots of problems that you'll work together. So what I would suggest is maybe do the first 2 with them and then have them do the next 2 in that section, stand when they're done, and then talk about them and check them, and then move on to the next section. One of our 4th grade teachers, she's an amazing math teacher. She noticed that 4th graders tend to struggle on tests on those sections where there's an addition problem, right next to it is a multiplication problem, a division problem, and then a fraction adding problem. Just kind of those solve those problems sections. Have you noticed that they tend to make mistakes? Well, one thought she had, which I thought was really good, is sometimes their brains just struggle going from, okay, this is addition, this is subtraction, and just changing back and forth. So what she does a lot on her worksheets is she'll say, okay, you see section 4, 5, and 6? I want you to do problem A in section 4, problem A in section 5, and problem A in section 6. Stay when you're done. So they get used to doing different sections all at once. That's really good. So however it helps you, you want to make sure that your smart students are not just filling out the whole worksheet and being done, and your slow students are not just sitting there not getting things done. In 5th and 6th grade, we have a class practice section at the beginning where that's where I'm explaining it and we're doing those together. The class practice is what we do together. And then the review section is what they work independently. So it's slightly different. With that, in 5th and 6th grade, what we tend to do is when we get to the review section, assign different rows times to go to the chalkboard and do their problem. So give them different problems for different rows, have them go to the chalkboard. They love doing that. And then just thinking about keeping things moving. Okay, so I want to make sure that as I'm working on this, that I'm following my curriculum. The reason I want to follow the curriculum is sometimes we tend to dwell on what we like. So if I'm enjoying Around the World that day, I may take 10 minutes and then I don't have enough time to teach it later. That's not good. Or you say, oh, I just don't feel like teaching today. Everybody get out your math worksheets, work on your review section. That's not good either. So we want to make sure that we're keeping a balance and we're following the curriculum. And the reason is everything that the curriculum tells you to do is on your tests and quizzes. So if you cover it, you know you've covered the information that you need for the tests and quizzes. If you don't cover it, or you're just getting stuck on problems thinking they don't understand this one concept this day and you take too long, then they're going to get behind and it kind of begins to pile up on you. So you want to follow the curriculum closely, and then you want to motivate the students to keep their pencils moving. Okay, so how do you do that? First off, let's talk about our smart students. I have a smart student this year. He is amazing. This doesn't happen very often, but he has a 100 average in math. One day this year, he missed one on a speed drill and he cried. And it was quite entertaining for me, to say the least, because he is so smart. So if I don't watch him, he can finish the entire worksheet very quickly and be done. So I don't let him. I say, okay, we're going to work on section 3. You're going to do A and B, and you're going to stand. And when they stand, I tell them, put your pencils down. And I am constantly saying, I need to see your eyeballs. And the reason is, if I can see their eyeballs, I can see what they're doing. So if you notice one of your smart students, hunkered over working, tell them to put their pencil down. They'll have plenty of time to work on it, but just keep an eye on them. But do motivate them. If they finish their math worksheet, that's quite an accomplishment. So if they finish, do they get something? Now, I understand in life, we don't get rewarded for doing our job, but they're only 10 or they're only 9. So do you give them some kind of incentive? One thing I do is if they finish their math worksheet and we have math homework, they can begin on their math homework. Now I do check it and make sure that it's accurate. So if they finish, I will take it and check it with mine and make sure that they did it correctly. But if they finish, they can work on their math homework. It's still math. They're being diligent, and it's an award for them finishing. For your slow students, so let's talk about them. You got to walk around. If you don't walk around, you don't know what they're doing, and they may be drawing on their math worksheet instead of doing the problems. So walk around. In my class this year, I can think of the boy's name. I'm constantly standing right beside him, and that just helps him to stay engaged. And then reward them for finishing a section. In 5th and 6th grade, that review section, I'll say, pick which section is easiest for you and do that first and see if you can finish it. And just encourage them so they don't feel overwhelmed. Maybe do a random section with them here and there, so that way everybody is engaged. You don't let your smart students get too far ahead. You're not letting your low students get too far behind, but we're all together. Assign them sections to do at a time and then stand. This just helps kind of break it up. I think of Celsius to Fahrenheit, Fahrenheit to Celsius. When I do that, we will pause and we'll stand and we'll sing the songs a few times and then we'll sit down. Divisibility rules, I have a certain way I chant through those. So if we're using those, if we're reducing fractions, we may pause, stand, say our divisibility rules a few times, and then sit down. And so I'm just doing that to kind of keep them engaged, keep the momentum going so we're not all just sitting still the whole time. And then train your students on a few procedures that will just help you out. So thinking about training our students, the first thing you want to do is if you have a math quiz. Have you noticed math quiz days do not get anything done? Okay, so what you do is this. You pass out your math quiz when it's time, and you tell them, if you finish your math quiz, take out your math worksheet and work on the back from the bottom to the top. And that way, when the bulk of your class is done, half of your class has already completed about half of their worksheet. So you don't look bad. It doesn't look like you didn't get anything done. They got some of it done ahead of time. So that's a little clue right there. Train your students to, if they have the black and green problems in 5th and 6th, just do the black problems. The green problems are extra. So train them on those things. If you're a 3rd and 4th grade teacher and you have a specific way, train them, do this section and then this section. And then when you're done that, then you can be done. And just train them on how to think through their math so it's not overwhelming to them and you can get the bulk of your students done. So just a few tips as we kind of wrap this up on how you can help yourself and keep an eye on your students. Occasionally collect their math worksheets. Now, they tear them out and they send them home the way I do it, but occasionally I'll collect them and I'll see who got problems done, who didn't get problems done. Was I aware that they didn't get anything done? And just kind of checking myself. So check the worksheets. I don't need to grade them. That's not what they're there for. It's to teach the new concept, but occasionally check them. Integrate the Bible into your arithmetic class. It doesn't always flow naturally, but sometimes it really does. God is a God of order. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and so is math, really. So when you think about it, when you have those moments, make it a natural flow of the lesson, but allow them to think about God and math and kind of put it all together. And that's why we're Christian school teachers, and so we want to integrate the biblical principles. If you have an opportunity and the lesson lends itself, use visual manipulatives. I think of area is a great time to make some brownies. So you make brownies, then you have them hidden, and then you pull them out, and suddenly everybody's sitting up and paying attention, and then cut them up into squares and explain area to them. I think of square roots. I like to take Cheez-Its and put them all together in squares and say, okay, if you have 3 across at the top and 3 going down, how many total do you have in your square? And just using some things to make it fun. Food is always an incentive for children to learn. And then when you have the chance, every time you can, integrate that higher level of thinking. We are currently learning in 5th grade about squares and square roots. So we went through our 1 to 100 chart and we said 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared. Well, my smart student who has 100, I caught on him and I said, what's 13 squared? And that caught him for a second because I don't normally do 13 squared, but just cause them to think a little higher. And then don't avoid the story problems. Let's actually look at a story problem. If you'll notice on your screen, I love this story problem because it has several higher level thinkings. If you'll notice, it says that Iceland is called the land of fire and ice. There are 130 volcanic mountains in Iceland, but 20 are active volcanoes. The 2 most active volcanoes, and then it gives their names, and then it says what fraction of the volcanic mountains have the most activity. And there's multiple questions for one story problem. That's great. In 5th and 6th grade, we have those too, and they have those on their tests. So you don't want to gloss over your story problems. So if you're a first-year teacher, let me tell you a secret. Last year, we had a first-year 5th grade teacher, and she came over to me one day and she said, I don't know how to solve this story problem for tomorrow. And I said, oh, let me show you something. And in the back of your teacher's edition of your math book, every single story problem is worked out for you and the answers are there. So if you don't know how to do it, just flip to the back of your math book and they're there. But use those because the students are going to see them a lot. Don't avoid those problem-solving strategies. And then just a few more tips to kind of think about this. We integrate the Bible, we use visuals when we can, use higher level thinking. And then as you're grading, every other week, if you follow the curriculum, you have a quiz and then a test, and then a quiz and then a test. And then every speed drill, there's 1 or 2 that are graded on there. So when you're grading, that is a good time to notice where they struggle. If all of your students miss the same question, that might be a clue of what you need to go back over. And I use that for help class. Speaking of help class, let's talk about our low students. So a good way to help them, in the back of the book, there are supplemental exercises. Those are very helpful for parents. Have you ever had a parent call you and say, I would love to help them at home, but I don't want to work on their math worksheet and get that done? We'll just refer them to the supplemental exercises, and they have specific problems for specific learning things, so you can go over those. And then I conduct a help class. So how it works is every morning from 7:30 to 7:50, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I teach a math help class. And then Tuesday, Thursdays, I do language. And that helps parents because if they come to school early, they can come in and know Miss Anspaugh is going to go over the things that they're learning or the things that they're struggling with. That also takes pressure off of you because if you do that, you have done what you could. And so if the parents choose not to send their children, that's okay, but you have it there for them. So have some type of tutoring system so that way you can avail yourself to help those low students. So when you're doing a help class, you want to review the basic facts. Most of the time, if your student is low, it may be because they just don't know their multiplication facts or their division facts. So go over those with them. Maybe spend about 5 minutes doing that. And then you want to review the new concepts, the things that you just taught, and call on them a lot. When it's just you and your 2 low students or your 3 low students, you can kind of target what they're struggling with and help them. And then give them some time to just work independently and watch. One thing I have found is if you have a low student and you don't know why they're struggling, if you give them a problem and say, here, I want you to work this out for me, and just watch them work it out, many times that's when you can find out, oh, you actually understand most of this. There's just a little bit here or there that we're not quite getting, and you can go over it. And again, when you can show parents that you are helping their child individually, that makes them feel a lot better because they know you're giving everything that you can to make sure their student is set up for success in math. So a few takeaways I want you to think about. Is there any way in your math class that you can become more organized and streamline your process so it doesn't feel so overwhelming, so you don't have as much in your head that you have to do? That's why I have my system of my charts and my flashcards. Let me show you with flashcards really quickly. If you didn't know this, if you have flashcards, always flip from the back to the front, and that's way you can see the answers yourself. If I go this way, I don't know what they're saying. So if I flip from the back to the front, that helps me out. So have a specific system with your flashcards. Think of interesting ways that you can introduce your lesson so that way the students are engaged. Have times for them to stand and move around so that way it's not stagnant. And then find ways that you can help those low students. And the more you do it, the easier it will be and you will have an effective math class.